Welcome to Bloody Chapter, where every whisper hides a secret, and every secret has a price. Tonight's story is one of beauty, madness, and the darkness that waits behind the light. Sit back and listen closely, because this story, once it starts, doesn't let go. Her eyes follow me, a chilling tale of art, obsession, and the darkness that lives inside creation. When an art restorer is hired to revive a mysterious portrait in an abandoned mansion, she discovers the painting isn't just alive, it's waiting for her. There are certain houses that hold their breath when you enter, the kind that seem to lean in to listen, walls stretching closer as if they remember everything. The Moreland house was one of those. It stood at the far end of Hollow Street, half forgotten beneath drooping willow branches, its crimson window lights flickering faintly even in daylight. When Elara Finch stepped out of the taxi, she paused to take it all in, the faded paint, the ivy crawling like veins, and the faint hum of something alive. She was there for one reason, the commission. A private collector named Lucian Moreland had offered her an obscene amount of money to restore an old portrait in his family estate. She'd hesitated at first. Art restoration wasn't usually done in person, let alone in a decaying mansion hours from the city. But Lucian's voice on the phone was persuasive, velvet smooth, and oddly compelling. "Some things can't be moved," he'd said. "This painting belongs here." Inside, the air smelled of oil and old perfume. Dust danced through streaks of dim light as Lucian appeared at the top of the stairs. He was tall, composed, and strangely timeless, his dark hair brushed back neatly, eyes grey and distant like fog. "Miss Finch," he greeted softly. "You made it. I was beginning to think the house scared you away." Elara smiled politely. "I've seen worse places in my line of work." "I doubt that," he murmured, leading her down the hall. The portrait was in what he called the Crimson Room. She'd expected a canvas, but what she saw stopped her mid-step. The painting was enormous, nearly covering the entire wall. It depicted a woman seated by a window, her dress the color of deep wine, her expression serene yet distant. But something about her eyes felt alive, watching. "Your ancestor?" Elara asked, half whispering. Lucian nodded slowly. "My great-grandmother, Seraphine Moreland. The story goes she was the last true artist of our bloodline, and that she never finished her final painting. They say she disappeared before the final brushstroke." Elara leaned closer. The varnish was cracked, pigment flaking in places, but the detail beneath, the depth of color, the way the eyes caught the light, was masterful. Whoever painted this was extraordinary. "She painted herself," Lucian said quietly. Elara looked back at him. "A self-portrait." He only smiled faintly. "Of a kind." That night, as the rain began to fall against the tall windows, Elara set up her equipment. Her small lamp illuminated the portrait, casting long shadows across the crimson walls. She felt oddly calm, almost entranced by the woman's gaze. But as the clock neared midnight, something shifted. The faint hum she'd noticed earlier grew louder, like a vibration in the air, and for a second, she could have sworn the painted woman's eyes glistened. Not from the light, but from within. Elara blinked, shaking it off. "Focus," she muttered. "It's just the lighting." But when she reached for her brush, the air turned cold. Her reflection in the polished frame shimmered, and for a split second, it wasn't her face she saw. It was Seraphine's. The next morning, Lucian was waiting in the hallway with 2 cups of tea. "You were up late," he remarked. Elara nodded, rubbing her temples. "I thought I saw something strange. Probably the fatigue." Lucian's expression didn't change. "This house has a way of showing things. You shouldn't be frightened. Inspiration often hides behind fear." He said it like a promise, or a warning. Over the next few days, Elara's work progressed. The more she restored, the more vibrant Seraphine became. The woman's lips darkened, her eyes grew almost lifelike, and the background, the dim red room behind her, began to shimmer like it was breathing. Elara started to dream of her. In one dream, Seraphine stood behind her, whispering words she couldn't understand. In another, she was painting on the walls, each brushstroke bleeding light. By the fourth night, Ilara woke to find her hand gripping a brush and fresh crimson streaks on the portrait that she didn't remember painting. Lucien's demeanor remained calm, but his eyes followed her every move. "You're becoming quite attached to her," he said softly one evening. Ilara laughed uneasily. "I guess that's part of the process. I'm trying to understand her work." "To understand her," he repeated. "Be careful how deeply you look into her eyes. Some mirrors don't return what they reflect." That night, Ilara noticed something new, a faint outline in the lower part of the canvas, previously hidden by grime. It looked like a second figure, one that seemed to be kneeling beside Seraphine. She carefully brushed away the dust, revealing a faint male form, eyes downcast, face pale. And as the image came into view, a chill ran down her spine. The man looked exactly like Lucien. She froze, heart hammering. Had someone added this after Seraphine's time? A copycat? She turned to ask Lucien, but he was already standing in the doorway. "You weren't meant to uncover that," he said quietly. "Then why hide it?" she whispered. "Because not all stories need to be told twice." He stepped closer, eyes glinting in the dim light. "Do you know what she used for that color?" He gestured to the deep crimson hue of the dress. Ilara frowned. "It's vermilion pigment, common for the period." Lucien's voice dropped lower. "Common, if you could afford it. But she had no money, only devotion." A slow, knowing chill crept through her. "What are you saying?" Every artist leaves part of themselves in their work. Some, more literally than others. He left before she could ask more. That night, Ilara couldn't sleep. The house creaked and whispered as if something was pacing in the halls. When she finally dared to check the crimson room, she found the light already on, and the portrait subtly different. Seraphine was smiling. The change was small, but undeniable. And there, near the lower corner, the painted Lucien's eyes were open. Ilara stumbled back, trembling. Her reflection in the glass looked distorted, her face half-shadowed, half someone else's. "It's just exhaustion," she told herself again. "Paint fumes, lack of sleep." But deep down, she knew. The painting was changing, not through her hand, but on its own. And in the faint hum of the house, beneath the crackle of the storm outside, she heard something whisper her name. "Ilara." The following morning, she confronted Lucien. "What's happening to it?" she demanded. He regarded her with that unreadable calm. "The portrait is returning to its truth. You're only helping it remember." "This is insane," she snapped. "I'm done. I'm leaving." "You can't," he said, almost gently. "The painting isn't finished yet." When she tried to push past him, the door wouldn't open. None of them would. Every handle twisted endlessly, every hallway turned her back to the same crimson-lit room. The house was a labyrinth now, its shape shifting around her like a dream she couldn't wake from. Lucien's voice echoed through the corridors. "She chose you, Ilara. The same way she chose me. To keep the art alive." Her flashlight flickered as she stumbled back into the crimson room. The painting seemed brighter now, the light almost pulsing. The woman's eyes shone with something close to pity. Then, Ilara saw it, a second, smaller portrait on the wall opposite. She hadn't noticed it before. It was covered by a white sheet, faintly stained with age. Her hands trembled as she pulled it away. Underneath was herself. Her face, her clothes, every detail perfect, but her eyes were gone. Ilara staggered back from the painting, gasping for breath. Her pulse thundered in her ears as the shadows around her deepened, pulling closer like a living thing. The air smelled faintly metallic, and every flicker of the crimson lamp made Seraphine's face seem to shift, gentle one moment, cruel the next. She tried to speak, but her throat felt dry, her voice lost to the hum in the air. Then, slowly, the door creaked open behind her. Lucien stood there, no longer calm. His skin looked paler, his movements sharp and almost mechanical. "You see now, don't you?" he whispered. "How she remembers herself through you." Ilara's hands trembled. What is this place? What did you do? Lucian's gaze drifted to the portrait, his eyes filled not with fear, but longing. This house is a vessel. Every brushstroke, every whisper in the halls, they keep her alive. You woke her up, Ilara. She's been waiting for someone who could see her as she truly was. Ilara shook her head. No, this is madness. That thing. Lucian stepped closer, cutting her off. She was more than an artist. Seraphine didn't paint what she saw, she painted what wasn't meant to be seen. Every color she mixed held something alive. Her final masterpiece demanded more than pigment. His voice cracked slightly. It demanded blood. Ilara's stomach twisted. You said she disappeared. She didn't vanish, Lucian said. She became part of her creation. The painting is her tomb and her mirror. But even in death, she longed for company. The hum in the walls grew louder, vibrating through the floor. The portrait seemed to shimmer like heat off glass. That's why I brought you here, he whispered. She chose you, through me. Ilara took a step back, horrified. You planned this. Lucian's face contorted with guilt and devotion. I didn't plan, I obeyed. She's been calling for years. You can feel it too, can't you? That pull. Ilara's hands shook as she grabbed a rag from her table. You're insane. She hurled the rag at the canvas, but instead of bouncing off, it sank into the surface like water swallowing a stone. For a moment, the paint rippled. Then Seraphine's eyes turned toward her. Lucian. Ilara whispered, her voice cracking. It's moving. He smiled faintly, tears welling in his eyes. She's waking. The lights flickered violently. Every color in the room deepened, reds turning almost black, shadows crawling across the walls like spilled ink. The air grew thick and heavy, pressing down on her chest. Then came the voice. Soft at first, like silk tearing in the dark. Ilara. The painted woman's lips moved. Ilara screamed, stumbling back into the table. Jars of varnish shattered, spilling across the floor like blood. Lucian dropped to his knees, eyes wide in reverence. She speaks. Lucian, the voice hissed, you promised. He lowered his head, trembling. I've brought her, Seraphine, just as you asked. The portrait's eyes shifted toward Ilara. Finish me, it whispered. Ilara's mind reeled. No, this isn't real. She turned to run, but the hallway beyond the door wasn't there anymore. Just darkness, endless and deep. Behind her, Lucian rose to his feet, his expression caught between devotion and despair. If she's complete, maybe she'll let me go. He reached for the paintbrush on Ilara's table, dipped it into the spilled crimson varnish, and pressed it to his palm. Blood welled from the cut. Every art demands sacrifice, he murmured. I'll give what's left of me. Stop. Ilara shouted, lunging forward, but before she could reach him, Lucian pressed his hand against the canvas. The portrait came alive. Color spread from his touch like veins through paper. The painted Seraphine smiled, her eyes bright with something inhuman. And as the light in the room flared, Lucian's body began to fade, piece by piece, dissolving into the air. He looked at Ilara one last time, his voice barely a whisper. Finish it, and you'll understand. Then he was gone. Ilara collapsed to the floor, her breath coming in sharp gasps. The portrait was glowing now, its light pulsing with her heartbeat. She crawled backward, eyes fixed on it. But the woman inside no longer looked like Seraphine. She looked like her. Ilara awoke hours later, or maybe minutes. Time had lost all meaning. The rain outside had stopped. The room was silent except for the soft drip of varnish. The portrait stood untouched, calm again. Lucian was nowhere to be found. Trying to steady herself, Ilara stumbled toward the front door. It opened easily this time, revealing a pale dawn sky. She didn't look back, not once, as she drove away from Hollow Street. But 3 days later, she returned to her studio in the city, and that's when the true horror began. She started seeing her. In mirrors, in reflections, in photographs, a faint image just behind her shoulder, watching. The woman's face wasn't entirely Seraphine's anymore. It was something between them. Her hands began painting again on their own. Each night, she'd wake to find new strokes across fresh canvases, faces of people she'd never met, scenes she'd never seen. But all of them shared one detail, the same pair of eyes, painted in the same deep crimson shade. Weeks passed. She tried to destroy the brushes, the paints, everything she'd brought back. But the moment she did, the house on Hollow Street appeared in her dreams, its red windows glowing. Each time, she heard Lucien's voice whisper, "You can't destroy her. You are her." One night, desperate, she called an old colleague, a curator she trusted. He listened quietly, skeptical but concerned, and agreed to come by the next morning. When he arrived, her studio was silent. He found the canvases neatly arranged, dozens of portraits lined up against the wall, all of them signed in the same corner with crimson paint. E. Morland. But Ilara was gone. The police report said her studio door was locked from the inside. No signs of struggle, no forced entry. Only one odd detail, a faint crimson fingerprint on the window glass. A month later, the restored Morland painting resurfaced in an estate sale catalogue, listed under private collection. The description read, "The Crimson Portrait, artist unknown. Restored to perfection by a master restorer, believed to have vanished shortly after completion." The subject's expression appears unusually lifelike. Some viewers claim the eyes move under dim light. Those who attended the auction said the painting fetched a high price. It now hangs in a private gallery, behind a velvet rope, under a crimson lamp that never turns off. And if you stand before it long enough, just long enough, you might notice the faint outline of another figure forming beside the painted woman. A second face. Watching. And if you listen closely, you'll hear her whisper your name. You've just listened to another bloody chapter, where beauty, madness, and obsession blur into one. Remember, every masterpiece hides a secret, and sometimes, the secret watches back. Until next time, keep your lights dim and your curiosity darker.